It is traditional to begin with a welcoming into Reo, which is the one of the three official languages of New Zealand. This is the language of the Maori people. Tēnā koutou te whānau o Aotearoa Unitarian. Tēnā koutou ngā manuhiri. No mai, haere mai. Ki tēnei wharekara kia a te atua, tēnā koutou, tēnā tatou katoa. And your response, which I can't hear, but which would be normal, is kia ora, which means, and with you. We gather here on this Earth Day to remember this is our home, but not just ours. This land we live on, this water we drink, this air we breathe, the mountains that hold us steady to our ground, the surrounding oceans that nourish us body and soul, the bush that gives us their healing green, the flowers that give us their beauty and fragrance, the fields that give us our daily bread, the stars that show us our place, the wilderness and the tame backyards, all of it our home. We remember the ancestors who have lived on this land and who have shaped it. We inherit their choices. We honor the animals and creatures that have made their home in this land, the ones here now and the ones that used to be here. We envision the future generations who will live on this land and let their voices fill our hearts. We gather to remember this is our home, but not just ours. And if you have a candle or a chalice, this is our virtual chalice lighting. We commit to respond to the call of a wounded world. Sorry about the noise in the background. The other service is just finishing. It's an intergenerational Earth Day service. And they're noisy. So committed to respond to the call of a wounded world, we join together this day with loving hearts, hands, and minds, embracing the interconnected web of water, air, and earth. We light a fire of sustaining hope, ever bright with love and justice. May we bring forth this day new wisdom, strength, and courage to create a new world, not of wealth, but well-being, a world of new peace and abundance for all. As we give thanks for this earth, our shared and singular home, may we dedicate ourselves to its ongoing care, rising to the calls deep within us and all around us. May we respond today and always with courage and with love. It is now traditional for us to sing Spirit of Life. You get to be in the shower and sing it to your heart's content. Hopefully we occasionally have glitches with this process, but hopefully they won't curse us today. My reading today is a poem by Mark Bellatini entitled Earth. This is our earth. It falls through heaven like a pearl in a glass of plum wine. There are no other earths that I know of. There are no other skies that we have mapped. This is our earth. The oneness who gave birth to it remains nameless. There was no midwife then to bring us word of the birth cry. We only rejoice that it is. This is our earth. Ice caps its head, Glaciers clasp its feet. Warm wind, like the breath of a lover, breathes around its breast. Mountains thrust up to the clouds, bringing joy. Storms blow across its shores, bringing fear. Silvery fish capture sunlight and bring it down into the deep as on shore. Valleys spread with ripening fruit. Cities teem with the poor and disenfranchised in the shadow of golden towers. Children live and also die. Highways throb. Monks sit in silence. Mothers work. Crickets chirp. Teachers plan. Engineers design. Fathers write letters. People marry with and without the blessing of law. People cry, they laugh and brood and worry and wait. This is our earth. There are no other earths. Before its wonder, philosophers fall silent. Before its mystery, poets admit their words are shadow, not light. And all the great names religious teachers have left us, Ishtar, Shekinah, Terramata, Suchness, Wakan, Tonka, Gaia, suddenly refuse to announce themselves. And so we too fall silent, entering the time where words end and reality begins. Now I'm going to play a love song to the earth, written a few years ago by a bunch of our famous contemporary musicians. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, since we started doing Zoom services, I quit giving my 20-minute, 25-minute erudite talks or sermons, sparing you. And I now call them random musings. One, because the world kept changing so fast, I couldn't plan topics in advance that were going to be pertinent to the week before. But their intent now are to inspire your thoughts and your feelings and to give you something to chew on over the week ahead. So they're now random musings. They're not sermons or talks. And my random musing this week is, what good are pup fish? A couple weeks before the Christmas of 1849, William Lewis Manley climbed to a mountain pass and beheld the most wondrous picture of grand desolation one could ever see. Manley was standing in what's now called southwestern Nevada, with an empty stomach and a dry and parched throat. Manley found himself wandering the desert owing to a series of unfortunate decisions. Hoping to reach the gold fields of North California, he and his party took a detour that led into some of the most inhospitable terrain on the continent. As the party approached Death Valley, Manley's party chanced upon a cavern that contained a pool of warm, clear water. A few of the men plunged in. One recorded in his diary he had enjoyed an extremely refreshing bath. Manley peered into the water and noticed something strange. The pool was surrounded by rock and sand. It was miles from any other water body, yet it was dancing with fish. Decades later, he would remember these tiny minnows, as he called them. The cavern the 49ers chanced upon is now known as Devil's Hole, and the minnows as Devil's Hole pupfish. Devil's Hole pupfish are about an inch long. They're sapphire blue with intense black eyes and heads that are large for their body size. They're mostly easily distinguished by their absence. They're missing the pelvic fin that other fish and pupfish possess. How Devil's Hole got its pupfish is, as one ecologist put it, a beautiful enigma. The cavern is a geological oddity, a portal to a vast maze-like aquifer that runs far beneath the ground and holds water left over from the Pleistocene. The pool, which is about 60 feet long and 8 feet wide, constitutes the pupfish's entire habitat. 60 feet long, 8 feet wide. This is believed to be the smallest range of any vertebrate. Pupfish are so named because males wrangling over territory look a bit like puppies tussling. In the Death Valley area alone, there were at one time 11 species and subspecies of pupfish. One is now extinct, another is believed to be extinct, and the rest are all threatened. The Devil's Hole pupfish may well be the rarest fish in the world. In Manley's day, the cavern would have been hard to spot. Today, it's impossible to miss owing to the 10-foot tall fence, which is topped with razor wire. 4 times a year, they do a census of the fish, which is no small undertaking. Much like a municipal swimming pool, the pool at Devil's Hole has a shallow end and a deep end. The pool's deep end is very deep indeed. According to the Park Service, it descends over 500 feet. How much over is a matter of conjecture since no one has ever touched bottom and lived to tell about it. At the shallow end is a sloping ledge of limestone known as the shelf, which sits about a foot below the surface of the water. It's on the shelf that the fish tend to spawn and also where they find the most food. Though the pupfish inhabit only the pool's upper reaches, they're rarely seen below 75 feet. The vastness of the aquifer has nonetheless shaped them. That slate holds the key to the universe, referring to the slate with the number of fish counted, declared one biologist. The grand total for this census was 195. This was 60 more pupfish than had been counted in the previous census, and higher than anyone had dared guess. If there's a lot of fish, we all win, he observed. Altogether, the pupfish of Devil's Hole weighed in at about 100 grams. This is slightly less than the weight of a McDonald's filet fish. The biologists celebrated because since Manley discovered the pool, Thoreau lamented the extirpation from New Zealand of moose, cougar, beavers, and wolverine. Is it not a maimed and imperfect nature that I am conversant with? Woods that were once thick with wild turkeys were by the 1960s all but empty of it. Eastern elk, once plentiful from the Atlantic to the Mississippi, were gone by the 1870s. Passenger pigeons, which formed such immense flocks they blocked the sun, were eliminated around the same time. The last great nesting event, which was also the last great slaughter, took place in 1882. It would have been easy to count or to estimate the number of leaves in a forest as to calculate the number of buffalo living at any given time in the history of the species previous to 1870. By 1889, the number of bison living, wild and protected, had fallen to fewer than 650. Already in Paleolithic times, people had driven plenty of species, woolly mammoths, the woolly rhino, mastodon, and North American camels into oblivion. Later, as the Polynesians settled the islands of the Pacific, they wiped out creatures like the moa in New Zealand, which led to the extinction of the largest eagle in history, the Haast eagle, with a 3-meter wingspan that fed on them. When the Europeans reached the islands of the Indian Ocean, they did in the dodo, the red tail, the masquerade coot, the Rodriguez solitaire, and the Réunion ibis. What was different in the 19th century was the sheer pace of violence. If earlier losses had unfolded gradually, so gradually that not even the participants would have been aware of what was going on, the advent of technologies like the railroad and the repeating rifle turned extinction into a readily observable phenomenon. In the United States and indeed around the world, it became possible to watch creatures vanish in real time. For one species to mourn the death of another is a new thing under the sun, Aldo Leopold noted in an essay commemorating the passenger pigeon's passing. In the 20th century, the biodiversity crisis, as it eventually came to be known, only sped up. Extinction rates are now hundreds, perhaps thousands of times higher. Those who study such things have named this epoch of time as the Anthropocene, the age of humans. Our destruction of nature's ecosystems, including the biggest one of all, Earth, and violence against biodiversity is dated to have begun in 1952 in the US and Soviet Union's vying for nuclear supremacy. In that year, the US conducted 11 nuclear tests above ground, 50 miles from Devil's Hole. Meanwhile, a plume of radioactive water is creeping its way toward the cavern from the Nevada test site. In an effort to preserve it, an exact replica of the actual pool was constructed. The cost of doing so has been in the millions. One way to make sense of the biodiversity crisis would simply be to accept it. The history of life has, after all, been punctuated by extinction events, both big and very, very big. The impact that brought an end to the Cretaceous age wiped out something like 75% of all species on Earth. No one went for them, and eventually new species will all take their place. But for whatever reason, call it biophilia, call it care for God's creation, call it heart-stopping fear, people are reluctant to be the asteroid. And so we've created another class of animals. These are creatures we've pushed to the edge and then yanked back. There is no exact tally of how many species, like the pupfish, are now conservation reliant. At a minimum, they number in the thousands. As for the forms of assistance they rely on, these too are legion. They include, in addition to supplemental feeding and captive breeding, double clutching, head starting, enclosures, exclosures, managed birds, collation, guided training, guided migration, hand pollination, artificial insemination, predator avoidance training, and conditioned taste diversion. Every year, the list grows. Old deeds for old people and new deeds for new, observed Thoreau. One of the many who have dedicated their lives to saving the Devil's Hole pupfish is often asked why he spent so much time on such insignificant animals. What good are pupfish, they demand. What good are you? He responds. At this point, I invite you to go into small breakout groups, and I give you a question to get you started. You don't have to write this one down because you'll never get it all, but the Maui dolphin, the Canterbury knobbed weevil, the Mokohito stag beetle, quillwort, a primitive aquatic fern, and New Zealand fairy tern are the top 5 most endangered species out of over 4,000 in New Zealand. The question I give you is, how do we decide which to let go extinct? So you can fill in your own top 5 plants or animals. For instance, think about the fact that wheat used to be wild, and then it became a crop or domesticated. And then we did things like genetically modify it. And we're eliminating the diversity of kinds of wheat. And what would be the implications of it? And perhaps there's a need to be preserving whatever may still exist of wild wheat. I've declared this my year of the earth because I have preached very little over my 40 years on the subject of the environment, climate change, mostly because I felt defeated by it. And I chose this year to stop that. So I've already done a series of talks on it, and I will continue to do so, because the more I learn, the more aspects of it I keep finding that we need to be thinking about. A couple of us from this group managed to hear John Isham's film on Kiss the Ground, which is all about soil conservation and making the soil healthy and what we've done to destroy it, and how just focusing on improving the soil, making it healthy again, will help draw carbon out of what he calls legacy carbon out of the air. It's called drawdown, and it would be one of the single most important things we could do is how we change our farming practice and raising our livestock, as well as planting highly biodiverse crops. It was a fascinating piece, and maybe sometime we'll have him do it again. because it's well worth seeing. Okay, let me extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And that brings us to our closing words. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard. The path is never clear. And the stakes are very high. Take courage. For deep down, there is another truth. You're not alone yet. I want to thank all of our visitors from Florida. It was delightful to have you. And come anytime. You're wondering what to do with yourself on a Saturday. You can unmute yourselves. And if you want to chat for a few minutes, it's the closest we can come to morning tea. So go ahead and unmute. And maybe we'll see you again.